This is the TSG Multimedia video podcast for February 1st, 2016. This is John sitting with
Dan.
And a couple things before we get started here. Just want to mention, in case you didn't realize it, it's something new for this year that we're doing. We are putting out our audio podcast on YouTube as well as on Podomatic. So you can catch our audio podcast right here every month on the 15th. I'm pretty excited about that because I've been wanting to do something bigger with the audio podcast for a long time.
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool.
I was like waiting for you to say something. So anyway, we're looking at an HO scale model here, and it looks familiar because I think it was part of the train that you've been showing off on Dan's models, right? The 50s train, or
it was going to be.
Yeah, it looks like it was something that belonged on it.
Yeah, this is actually a car that I had long before I had the idea of doing this 50s train.
Mm-hmm.
This car was actually one of the cars that is on Volume 2 of our HO Weathering and Detailing series.
Okay.
And so I've had this one around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we taped those, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that?
I don't remember, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the problem with it is in transit down to the train club where we were going to film, one of the couplers blew out.
So what do you mean by blowing out?
Well, the lid came off, and not only did the lid come off, but the side of the coupler box got totally destroyed.
Whoa, look at that. What, was it smashed into something?
I'm not sure. The only thing I can think is that it must have shifted inside the box and hit the coupler.
Yeah.
And these coupler boxes were only held on with a friction, basically. There was no screw or anything. So that was kind of a weakness anyway.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned while building so many of these kits for these older style cars is that the coupler boxes aren't always the greatest.
Yeah.
So I kind of made some modifications to those kits as I was building them, and I'm going to do the same thing to this car since I need to repair it anyway. And I figured we'd just go through that on the podcast.
Well, I have a quick question. I remember when you got to the layout in the depot there, that a lot of the roof walks on other cars had sort of buckled. And I don't know if I still have any pictures of this. If I do, I'll insert them into the video here. And I think that we determined or decided or figured that it must have been due to the cold, because this was done, in I think it was late December or mid-December.
Yeah, it was a really cold day that day.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the only thing I can figure, because most of these cars have a Plano photo-etched roof walk.
Yeah.
If they didn't come with a photo-etched roof walk to begin with. And it's metal glued to plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have different rates of expansion.
Right, metal and plastic.
It's hot and cold. And the place where I live is a multi-story building, and I'm on a top floor, so the unit that I'm in tends to be warm all the time.
Yeah.
And then I had to take the cars, and transport them on a really, really cold day, so they were in a different temperature range for quite, a while. So that may cause that. I don't think this particular car had that problem.
Right. That's why I was asking, because I was going to say, do you think that it could have been something similar to that caused the coupler to demolish itself?
Oddly enough, this was one of the cars that didn't have a problem with the roof walk, but the coupler got destroyed. So it was like, if it's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah, it just goes to show.
So, yeah. Anyway, so I will go ahead and get started on this. So the first thing I need to do is take the truck off, because it's kind of in the way. I'm going to repair some other damage too while I'm at it, because one of the stirrups on the side broke, and it had an uncoupling lever that got broke, and it also had a train air hose, and that got broke.
It was not a good day for this car, was it?
It was a rough day for this car. So anyway, but we'll fix the coupler first. So I need to remove the old coupler box, and I'm using a chisel blade, and I'm just going to try to pop it off.
You're going to finish the job that...
There we go.
Well, there's like a little dusty stuff flying around.
Yeah. There may be some graphite lubricant that I used on the coupler at one point. Might have somehow got in between the coupler and the body. Now I'm just going to file this a little bit to smooth it out, since it looked like maybe it was glued a little bit.
So did you say that this was held on by friction only?
Yeah, the coupler box lid was just a press fit. What I'm talking about is this is the one of the lids,
Okay.
and you see it has a little pin on it.
Yes.
Well, this is upside down, but you flip this over, and it's supposed to slip into this little hole, and it's supposed to have enough friction that it keeps it there.
That seems like an awfully bad design.
Yeah, it really isn't the greatest.
You're so diplomatic. And over here, I was thinking, what is a piece of crap?
Yeah, well, that would be another choice of words for it. But yeah, essentially, it's not the greatest design.
I don't pull any punches, Dan.
Yeah. So this is the original coupler. It's a KD58 that I had on the car. And I had to get a new coupler spring because the original one was also destroyed. And this is one of the newer style KD coupler boxes that comes with their whisker couplers. I could put a whisker coupler on this, but since this is already weathered, I figured I might as well reuse it. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but the 58s with the old style springs will actually fit in the new boxes just fine.
Oh, cool. That's good. There's a little tip there.
Yeah. So you just put this together. You put the spring in the box, then the coupler in the box, and then just snap the lid on.
Right, but this gets held on by something stronger than friction, right?
Right. Well, this is just holding the coupler together.
Yeah.
And it's got good centering action, but there's a screw hole in the middle, as you can see.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. That's the real thing right there. So I'm going to set the new coupler box in place on the bottom of the car, and then I'm going to drill a new hole to mount it.
Well, is there a hole there already, or is it just...
There is, but it's not quite in the right spot.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to drill this. Unfortunately, because there's a hole there already, it's kind of moving the drill.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, there. I think that should be okay. Then I'm going to tap it for a 256 screw.
You use those 256 screws a lot.
Yeah, well, they're a nice size for HO scale trains because they're small, but not too small.
Small but strong.
Yeah. Yeah, the real benefit to the screw, too, isn't to keep the coupler from falling on the track. It's to transfer the force of the train to the car body.
Right, instead of a little piece of plastic, right?
Right. So now I'll just screw the new coupler box on.
Oh, it's a flathead?
Yeah.
Well, that sucks. I hate flathead screws. I find those things so hard sometimes to make work. Like, why do people even have those anymore? Why not just have Phillips head for everything? They're so much easier to drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I got these in bulk as a deal on eBay, so they were fairly inexpensive. You don't want to tighten it too much. You want it to be snug, but not over tight, because it's very easy to strip the threads out of the plastic.
Yeah.
So
it could put pressure on the coupler too, couldn't it?
Yeah, if you tighten it too tight, you might not have it be. It might not be able to swing from side to side so well.
And it's important to have that.
Yeah, very. But anyway, now I'm going to put the truck back on just temporarily, and I'm going to check the coupler height to see where we're at.
So I have a question about that. All you're doing is changing the coupler. Why should the height be... Oh, well, the coupler box is going to change the height of the coupler probably, right?
It's a different coupler box design, so it's possible that the coupler may be too high or too low now.
Yeah.
So I got to check it.
It looks like it is just the smallest amount low.
Yeah, just slightly. So I think I'm going to have to put a shim washer between the bolster and the car body above the truck.
Okay, so what that does then is it just separates the truck from the body, thereby raising the body just a tiny, tiny bit. Is that how that works?
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's take a look and see how you do that.
I have some of these KD washers that are made for this purpose. They come in two different thicknesses. There's red ones and gray ones, and the gray ones are a little thinner, so I'm going to try one of those since the height wasn't that far off.
Yeah, I think I've seen you do this before.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy thing to do. Now, if the coupler had been too high... one of the things that I had to do on some of the other cars that I built was actually put a little shim between the coupler box and the car body to lower the coupler. Which Katie actually sells some shims, or you can just make it out of a piece of scrap plastic.
Sure, like
pretty
a super
easy.
thin styrene or something.
Yeah, usually like O10 or O20 styrene at most. You usually don't need too much.
I seem to recall another time I've seen you adjust coupler heights. You took a file to the area just under the truck there.
Yeah, that's another way to do it.
Yeah.
But since you're mounting a new coupler box anyway, sometimes it's just as easy to put a shim.
It could be easier, actually, because
Yeah.
you have it apart anyway, right?
Yeah, the reason I file the bolsters on cars that are too high a lot is because the coupler box isn't removable. A lot of the times the coupler box is built into the frame of the car, and it wouldn't be easy to change that, so you really don't have any choice.
Don't they also make offset shanks so that the coupler is higher or lower?
They do, but I don't like to use them because I think they look weird.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen a real rail car with something that looks like that.
No, that's just a model thing.
It's kind of a cheater way of making it happen. Well, Dan, I hate to break it to you, but
It's a little high, isn't it?
it is just
So slightly.
It was ever so slightly low, and now it's ever so slightly high.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do in a situation? I mean,
I think I'm going to have to go ahead and file the bolster just a little bit.
Oh, like I was talking about?
Yeah, just a tiny bit, because I want it to be right on.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have it any other way.
It sounds weird because you're doing one thing to raise it and then doing another thing to lower it, but what I'm really trying to do is split the difference. Either that or I could try to file the washer thinner. That might also work.
Yeah. No, but I have a question, though, because this does sort of go to the whole idea of a point of diminishing returns, right? We've talked about that before. And the question is, this is so close. Would this really affect the performance, or is it more of a kind of a perfectionist thing that you just want to have it perfect?
I think it's probably more of the latter.
More of a perfectionist thing?
More of a perfectionist thing.
Well,
but the thing is, though, is if you start to let slop creep into it, if one,
right.
You get to a point where it's like, I don't know, it's better to make it right.
Right, and here's the other thing, too. Think about this. Why have standards if you don't apply them?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so I kind of get that. But I'm just saying, though, because to me, like, if this were me, I would say, you know what? That's good enough.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to affect anything. But that's not even the point, though. This is also the podcast, and we're showing people how to do stuff.
Right.
And what you're about to show is another way to fix a coupler. So let's do this.
Right. So it's a little tricky, but I'm just going to file right like this. And the thing you want to make sure to do is to file very level so that you don't make the truck sit cockeyed.
Yeah. Level and don't do too much, right?
Right. We don't want to do too much because it wasn't off by very much.
Yeah, that might even be enough already.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's right, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's about as close as you're going to get. I should maybe point out, now that I've inspected this car and I've got the couplers at the right height, I made sure that the wheels are engaged and all that. I have this thing that I call my green dot inspection program.
You're kidding, right?
No. This is something that I started many years ago when I had when I still had my layout, and then I kind of forgot about it. But recently I've started doing it again.
The green dot inspection.
Yeah,
thing.
I know it sounds silly, but after you have enough pieces of rolling stock, sometimes it gets very difficult to remember which ones you've checked and which ones you haven't.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So what that means to me, now you could have any kind of inspection routine you want if it's your own equipment. But what that means to me is that it has to do with the trucks and couplers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with couplers have to be Katie's for me. They have to be mounted at the correct height. And the trip pins have to be adjusted properly.
That makes sense.
Okay. And with regard to the trucks, the wheels have to be engaged. And the trucks have to be set up for a three-point suspension.
Okay, so they don't get the wobble.
Right, so that it'll not wobble, but it'll still go over any imperfections in the track, and it has to have metal wheels.
Right.
So,
that's pretty standard of what I've seen on your stuff.
Yeah, so that's what that means. And actually, I don't have any green paint with me right now, but what I do when I get a car inspected is I actually take a little toothpick or something, just put a little drop of green paint on it, and somewhere on the bottom of the car where it isn't going to be visible, I put a little dot of paint. And that way, if I pick that car up later and turn it over, I'll say, oh, I've already done this one. And it's really easy to know that way.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I think I may have seen a green dot on one of your cars somewhere, sometime.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's something I used to do a long time ago, and then I kind of fell out of the habit after I had to dismantle my layout. But recently I've started to do it again because it really, I've been running so many cars through my workbench lately, and I can't keep track of them anymore in my head. So it's it's like I really need to have some kind of system to remember.
Yeah, and it's just whatever. It's just a funny name. That's why I was laughing. I thought you were going to go into some detail about all this stuff you do. I was going to say, dude, seriously, it's just a model.
I know. No, I know. It's like, yeah, don't go too crazy, but it's it's just a thing I do.
It's a special kind of OCD.
Yeah.
So we were joking off camera about green dots and OCD and all that stuff, and we can joke about it, but it is important to be organized, and really what we're talking about is just another way to be organized. So
yeah, exactly.
All kidding aside.
So at this point, the car's pretty much ready to go back in operation, but I want to put a couple other things right cosmetically with it. So I'm going to take the truck off again. And this car originally had some plastic air hoses on it.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, but those tend to break really easily, and that's what happened with this one. So this is a rubber air hose from High Tech Details.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those before.
Yeah, and I like them because they're rubber and they don't break. Mm-hmm. So you just have to drill a couple of holes in the bottom of the car in the right spot. So
you say they don't break, but I could probably break it.
Well, if you're trying to break it.
Yes, under normal use. Yeah. Without some weirdo trying to damage it.
Right.
They don't break.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things will break if you really try, but
yeah, but I have a keyboard that I tried running over with my car, and my daughter even pogo sticked on it. And it didn't break. I'm not kidding. I made about a little over a year ago, I started my alternate channel. And I started it off with a series called Smashing Stuff with my car. And I spelled stuff SH exclamation point T. So it looks like another word, but it's not really. And that was one of the things. Yeah, no, that was one of the things that we tried to smash was this keyboard. And I'm not kidding. I ran that thing over with my car. I jumped on it and stepped on it. And she got the pogo stick out and was jumping on it with the pogo stick. And I still have it in the garage. I haven't tried plugging it back into the computer to see if it works, but it didn't break. It was amazing. Yeah. I don't know why I told you that just now, but you were doing something anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right. So I've drilled 2 holes to roughly match the little prongs that are on this thing. And I'll put some glue on it.
I'm glad to see this because I've seen those hoses on the models before, but I've never seen you put one on.
Yeah, I did a lot of this when I was building all those kits for the 50s train. And they can be a little tricky sometimes to get situated.
I want to mention something about the 50s train while you're doing this. The 50s train, in case you aren't subscribed to the channel, we have another series called Dan's Models. And the current run of Dan's Models is mostly about these vintage cars that Dan is building for what we're calling the 50s train. And at the end of the series of Dan's Models episodes, I'm going to have on tape or whatever recorded and going to present it to you, the viewers, the 50s train in its entirety on a run-by shot. So that's going to be pretty fun to do.
So that's pretty much how you do it. I just put one prong in one hole and one prong in the other hole. If possible, you want to make sure that this piece here doesn't hang down too low. And you don't want it like bumping things on the track, this hose. Usually they come out okay. Once in a while I get one that's too low and I can't make it go higher. So worst case, you can always just nip it off and just put a little dab of silver paint to represent the glad hand on there.
Yeah. So I think you've covered pretty much every way to adjust coupler height because we talked about the shims, we talked about taking material off, and we even talked about the offset shanks. So that's a good thing.
So I mentioned earlier about the 3-point suspension. So when I put this truck back on, I tightened it down enough so that it'll swivel this way, but it doesn't rock.
Uh-huh.
That keeps the car from wobbling.
Because the other one rocks, right?
Right. Well, you don't want them both to be rigid because then unless your track is absolutely perfect, it can derail if both trucks were perfectly rigid. So this one, you want it to rock side to side a little bit. So in case the track is uneven, the car will negotiate it.
Right.
But this one, you just want it to turn this way so it can go around curves but not rock. And that way the car won't wobble as it's going down the track.
Right. Because if they're both loose, then it wobbles. If they're both tight, then it derails.
Right.
So now people learned about the 3-point suspension. This podcast is really good. I think we should start charging for this, Dan.
It's an action-packed podcast.
Action-packed. All we need now is a cat video somehow incorporated.
I don't have a kitten to throw in here, unfortunately, but no, well.
Yeah, and all my wonderful, useful cats are inside. So
yeah, they're too old anyway.
Yeah, well, they're good at sleeping.
That's true.
Right? You know, they're professional sleepers.
Yeah. So next, I'm going to address the broken stirrup. So first I have to remove the little bits of the original. Oh, good. It came out completely. So there's a hole there. Saves me from having to re-drill it.
You could probably pull those out with a really fine pair of tweezers, huh?
Probably. So you could use an aftermarket part, but I've been building a lot of these cars. This is a branch line kit, and I happen to have some spares. So this one's black. It's not the right color, but I can fix that with some paint later.
Yeah, that's convenient.
Yeah, so I'm just going to glue this on. Should fit right in since it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, the same part, same brand, same everything. So
yeah.
So what are you just using, the CA glue or?
Yeah, I'll just use some CA. You could use liquid plastic cement also. But
so now is that a metal piece or is it a plastic piece?
it's plastic.
Oh,
It's plastic.
Yeah, plastic piece, huh?
Got a tiny bit of glue on them, but when I paint it, I can touch that up. So this car originally had plastic uncoupling levers. That also got destroyed. So I'm going to replace them and put some metal ones. So conveniently, it already has a hole drilled here for it.
That is convenient.
Yeah. So what I have in my pliers here is a slightly shortened Detail Associates eyelet or eye bolt, and I'm just going to stick it in this hole. I already put some glue on it.
I remember this from the weathering and detailing. You did all of your uncoupling lever, or I don't know about all of them, but you did a lot of uncoupling levers like this.
Yeah. Before I make my uncoupling lever, I'm going to drill a little hole in the lip at the bottom of the coupler box.
And why is this?
Oops.
Is it to thread through or?
Yeah. Yeah, this will provide a mounting point. Real uncoupling levers actually go on the coupler, but it's really no way to do that on a model, so this will kind of simulate that. So I bent a new uncoupling lever from a piece of 012 brass wire, and I threaded it through the eyelet, and then I put the other end through that little hole that I drilled.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, if anybody would like to see that whole process in more detail, you can check out our weathering and detailing rolling stock videos. I believe Volume 1 and Volume 2 both have that uncoupling lever trick on it.
Right. So this is the B end of the car, which I did exactly the same thing too. It's just that I've already painted this, so you can kind of see what it looks like when it's more finished.
Yeah, this is the side that didn't self-destruct.
Right. But I went ahead and fixed it anyway because I just wanted to prevent it from happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Dan, that's a lot of stuff. So we'll have to think of what to do on the next podcast because we've done everything now.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch everybody next time.
Bye.